Donald Trump in the presser just gave us a little bit of a hint of what's going on with the Chinese trade negotiations. They began today at around 1 p.m. London time, so kind of later in the day for a European meeting, potentially because of travel times or jet lag or whatever. But markets mostly all day long seemed like they were waiting for some form of update on Chinese trade negotiations, mostly because even a 30% tariff on Chinese goods and 10% tariff from China on U.S. goods, plus fentanyl tariffs, is still a substantially larger set of tariffs than what we've been used to historically. Obviously, markets are wondering what the longer-term impacts of this could be, specifically regarding potentially chip restrictions or rare earth mineral restrictions, all of these that could affect stocks like either Nvidia, which had optimism that the talks were going on, but as we didn't get any news, we saw Nvidia rotate down. When we look at the NASDAQ, you pretty much had a relatively flat day as we were waiting for news or some kind of bullish talk from Donald Trump. The only thing we really got was bullish talk, mostly in the form of not hating on Elon more on Tesla. That's because Trump said he doesn't know if Elon's called. He used to have a good relationship with Elon. He might move his Tesla around a little bit to different properties and away from the White House. So it's kind of like, Elon's moved into this category of like, you used to be my friend and you no longer are, but I'm not going to poop on you. And this talk about Donald Trump still liking Starlink was supportive probably to Tesla stock here, indicating that Trump isn't trying to go all out vindictive here. But markets were really looking for some form of enthusiasm on trade. And we didn't really get that today. Instead, what we got is that talks are going to continue for a second day. There was an anticipation that talks could continue tomorrow for a second day. We have restrictions on exports to them for certain computer chips and things like jet engines or ethane, not to be confused with methane. And then of course, China controls about 90% of the rare earths market. So you have limitations on rare earths that China is slowly enabling certain American companies to start buying those rare earths again. Mostly because China not only has the rare earth supply, but the processing power. And so the latest update is really just that representatives for, quote, both nations, per Bloomberg here, ended their first day of negotiations in London after more than 6 hours of negotiations. Talks concluded around 8 p.m. local time. That's potentially closer to 7 hours. And advisors will meet again tomorrow at 10 a.m., so about 3 hours earlier than they did today. So in other words, we could get some more updates tomorrow morning. Donald Trump says he's only getting good reports and he hopes that they're doing well. However, he does say that China's not easy and that they take advantage of us, and he kind of goes down that whole diatribe that he usually does. Although this is very typical of Trump because, he's trying to also help his team negotiate. So I don't think we really got anything super exciting out of China today, and we probably won't until tomorrow. Though after these talks conclude, I expect both sides are going to announce some form of progress. Mostly because both sides want to show their people that they are working for the people, right? Take a look at some commentary that we have from the embassy over here. I thought it was interesting, the timing of this post right here. You have Chinese defense spokesperson, U.S. weapons cannot save Taiwan. Now, I thought that was really interesting because, while negotiations are going on, you literally have the Chinese embassy in the U.S. going, those U.S. weapons, not strong enough to take Taiwan in terms of defense. This also comes at the same time as we hear that shipment data is, plummeting to China. It was down about 30%. Well, I want to see where that stat was. I think it was May. Here it is. Chinese exports slid 35% year on year in May, new data showed. Largest drop since February of 2020. Mind you that in May would have still included, the period up to about May 12th when we got the loosening of that 145% Chinese tariffs. Chip stocks such as Nvidia and AMD rallied Monday morning, boosting the tech-heavy NASDAQ. Right. Well, something we mentioned this morning as well in the Alpha report, which you could join in my pre-market live streams. I do a course member live stream and sort of an Alpha report, is I talked about how important this line was going to be today, the 122.48 line. And it's remarkable because you might say oh, sure, Kevin, you're looking at this in the past. Yeah, but if you join the Alpha report, you'll see me talk about it here when we were at 119. This is when I was talking about it. And it's written in a report, timestamped, that like, hey, you want to be careful, that 122.48 line, I know that we're going to break it today. And sure enough, you got almost a perfect reject right here, and you almost double rejected it here. Now, that said, Nvidia and AMD could rally tomorrow if we get really good news. So if you're trading these, you got to pay attention to what Trump is saying on Truth Social tomorrow. Obviously, this goes without saying. But beyond that, you also want to be, broadly paying attention to, hey, like, is this going to drag on like it did in 2018, 2019, and 20? The only reason our trade negotiations with China ended was because of COVID in 2020, and we came to some compromise deal that ended up hurting American farmers to the benefit of Brazilian farmers. We ended up having to bail out our farming industry in part because of the tariff negotiations and how long they took in 2018. Markets are really hopeful that we can quickly resolve and that the U.S. GDP is strong enough. Jobs report is stable enough right now to suggest that GDP is fine. The Federal Reserve might end up cutting once or twice at the end of the year. That would be a tailwind to the economy. You've got the Atlanta Fed GDP, which obviously is very high right now because you had such a negative last quarter and we're not importing as much right now. What matters most is what's going to happen in Q3. Where is this going to stabilize? Are we going to stabilize under 0? Are we going to stabilize under 1, under 2? Anything over 1, I think, would be very, very positive. And that's the trajectory where we were before. We were slightly over 2. So very important. And I'm curious to see how these negotiations go, but as history says, it'll likely take longer. China accounts for almost 70% of the world's production of rare earth minerals. That's interesting. I've seen stats indicate 90%. So I think this might be a difference between like the actual rare earths and rare earth refining capacity and then mining capacity. So there could be some differences there. Specifically, the Trump admin is prepared to remove a recent spate of measures against chip design software, jet engine parts, chemicals, nuclear material, and others. So it almost sounds like we're cleaning up little pieces. It's like a very incremental almost deal. Trump administration, Hassett said this morning, expects a handshake. Very, very high-end Nvidia stuff is not going to get negotiated away. However, maybe the lower-end Chinese chips, that'll be a big boost to Nvidia. Remember in the last Nvidia earnings, Nvidia took over a $4 billion hit in the quarter. I think it was an $8 billion hit in total because they're not able to export those cheaper, I think they're the H20 chips. If we get a deal tomorrow that says Nvidia can start, resuming their export, which I expect this, okay? Expect you're going to get a resumption of those cheaper chips. Nvidia's going to boom. You might hit all-time highs. I mean, next stop, in my opinion, on Nvidia, because this is a cash cow of a machine. They dump, like the bag holder of the AI trade is going to be CoreWeave in the long term, not in the near term. It's a great play in the near term, bad play, in my opinion, very long term. But I think we could break through this 164 level. So I'm pretty bullish on these trade negotiations with Nvidia. I don't think macro is really going to go poopy doopy until at the earliest in the third quarter. And so you can't really be bearish on it right now. It's pretty impressive. So got to give credit where credit's due, and we'll see what happens with the negotiation. But I do certainly hope that the trade war comes to a complete end, and I'll knock on wood for some very good news. But otherwise, kind of quiet in terms of China trade news. Hey, quick reminder, if you want to earn a 5% yield plus all of the upside in my real estate startup, we are offering a non-accredited investor round where we will pay you a 5% yield plus you get all of the upside in the stock when your stock converts in the future. It gives you an opportunity to diversify away from rich stock market valuations, diversify away from most tariff risk, diversify away from the craziness of the treasuries market, especially with these Moody's downgrades. You diversify into fixer-upper real estate, which is what I believe I do best. This is my baby. I call it my little Berkshire Hathaway. Now, maybe I'm biased, but I've got over $5 million of my own money invested into this business, and I'm so excited for what I think we're going to be able to do with this business over not just the next years, but the next decades. So if you want to invest in my real estate startup, go to househack.com and know that I will do everything for this business in my power to make sure we can do the absolute best that we can. Make sure to read the solicitations and disclosures on the Househack website because there is risk with every investment.